Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 281. Without any delay, start explanation. Previously, he had been under the impression that she was threatened when she refused to stay with him. Yet, it was she who had saved the critical situation during the battle with the abyssal plane. She was even capable of moving the energy of an entire plane by herself. What else could threaten her with her present cultivation base and potential? Although it had only been a short while since he regained consciousness, Tang Wulin realized that the circumstances with Gu Yuana were much more complicated than he had imagined. He could not refrain himself anymore, so he wished to investigate and clarify the situation. Thus, he decided to look for her. He could only settle down after inquiring from her in person. Zhong Huanyun spoke in rage. Tang Wulin, do you know what you're talking about here? You ought to know that when you were bestowed the title of Blood Dragon in addition to your position as the Deputy Regimental Commander, you're almost on equal terms with us. The army will be yours in the future. All the soldiers are your admirers. The seal of the abyssal plane has been strengthened significantly, so there's no threat at the moment. It's the best time for you to cultivate and develop yourself. But, you're telling me now that you wish to be discharged from the army. Tang Wulin did not utter a word as he lowered his head. Zhong Huanyun became more agitated as he spoke. He pointed at Cao Dashi and said, do you know, for your sake, Blood One requested that I allow the Blood God Army to help you revive Shrek Academy once we foster a good relationship with the Abyss so they'll no longer invade us. What are you going to do when you are discharged from the army? Are you going to revive the academy? Are you going to do it alone? Don't think that your capability to withstand the Abyssal King during the great battle with the Abyssal Plane is enough. That's done by relying on the Blood God's Great Array's planar power. You're nothing but a Soul Emperor without the Blood God's Great Array. Soul Sage, said Cao Dashi dully from the side. Soul Sage? Zhong Huanyun was stunned for a moment while the words made Tang Wulin raise his head. Me? I'm already a Soul Sage now? Without waiting for his reply, Zhong Huanyun spoke angrily, so what if you're a Soul Sage? Can a Soul Sage fight against those people who destroyed Shrek Academy back in the beginning? Just by your sole effort? Can you do that? Tell me, what do you want to do after being discharged from the army? Zhong Huanyun had an exasperated look on his face as if Tang Wulin had not lived up to his expectations. Tang Wulin's expression turned peculiar. He could not tell them that he was going to look for his girlfriend. Is it related to that female? Cao Dashi asked the million-dollar question. Tang Wulin hesitated for a moment but he nodded anyway. Cao Dashi frowned deeply. Who's she? Tang Wulin said with a bitter smile, my lover. I didn't realize that she has such abilities. She is a disciple of the Spirit Pagoda. I wish to look for her to find out what it was all about. The Spirit Pagoda's disciple? Zhong Huanyun and Cao Dashi's expression turned apprehensive upon listening to Tang Wulin. At the time, it was apparent that Tang Wulin could not hold back anymore. It was her appearance that saved the grave situation. She was even capable of taking over control of the Blood God's Great Array from Blood One. It was definitely not a run-of-the-mill ability. They did an analysis regarding her ability to invoke heaven and earth spirits after the event. They realized it was not something a human could do. Unless she was a godhood. Nevertheless, how could a godhood still exist on the Dolor continent? Zhong Huanyun frowned deeply. What are you going to do when you've found her? Do you know that the Spirit Pagoda, at this point, he paused for a moment too. Tang Wulin nodded. I'm aware of that. The Academy's destruction is quite possibly related to the Spirit Pagoda. And you still wish to go? Tang Wulin answered, I'll never be at peace if I don't clarify this matter. Don't worry, I'll be careful. I won't unwittingly expose my identity. I'll be damned if I can stop worrying. You're the only person capable of weakening the abyssal plane. You didn't die in the hands of that creature from the abyssal plane. So, don't you die in the hands of your own people at the end. How can I stop worrying about you? I won't allow you to leave, let alone permit your discharge from the army. It's an order. Zhong Huanyun spoke adamantly. Tang Wulin had a bitter smile on his face. Would it be the only chance of leaving the place was he had to sneak out? He would end up being a deserter then. Let him go. Out of the blue, Cao Dashi opined. Tang Wulin's eyes glowed. He raised his head and looked toward Cao Dashi. Zhong Huanyun's gaze at Cao Dashi was antagonistic now. Cao Dashi smiled calmly. He's not an eyas anymore, for his wings had already hardened. If you don't allow him to wander, how will he ever know about the world outside? Moreover, he should be able to look after himself with his ability now. Wulin, although you're allowed to leave, you must promise me a few things. Please speak your mind, said Tang Wulin hastily. Cao Dashi spoke with a deep voice. Firstly, your emotion is unstable now. You should not be in this condition. Remember, don't ever be afraid, no matter what. I sense fear in your heart. You can only resolve a problem by remaining calm. Why do you fear? Thus, my first request is for you to stay calm no matter what you encounter, so you can maximize your true ability. I, too, believe you have the capability to overcome any problem you may face. Yes, sir. Tang Wulin was feeling inspired now as he took a deep breath. He went from being overwhelmed when he first awakened to being collected at present. Cao Dashi continued to speak. Secondly, there's no need for you to be discharged from the army. I shall regard your departure as a covert operation. The army will reserve the post for you. You'll always remain a part of the Blood God Army. It's my honor. Tang Wulin nodded strenuously. Zhong Huanyun's expression showed that he had calmed down considerably after listening to Cao Dashi's justification. Cao Dashi continued to speak. Thirdly, due to the sensitivity of your identity in addition to your limited cultivation base at present, I'll be sending a few people to accompany and assist you. You can begin some preparatory tasks before reviving Shrek Academy, so it won't purely be looking for someone. Tang Wulin's eyes glowed. This was good news. The Blood God Army soldiers were all elite, such that even the ordinary soldiers had powerful cultivation bases. Understood. How many people will I be taking along? Cao Dashi glanced at Zhong Huanyun and spoke. 20. I'll be selecting them. They'll all have 6-ringed cultivation bases or above. Thank you, sir. Tang Wulin was overjoyed. His strength alone was still weak after all. He would truly be able to yield twice the result with half the effort if he had the assistance of 26-ring powerhouses. Undoubtedly, the 6-ringed soul masters selected by Cao Dashi would certainly be 2-word battle armor masters as well. Cao Dashi paused for a moment. Then, he said, finally, your cultivation base is considered a breakthrough to the soul sage rank, but it has yet to stabilize. Thus, you can't leave at once. You need to stabilize your cultivation base in the Blood God Battalion first. You can only leave when you've fused your learning and experience from this great battle. I'll personally examine you then. Yes, sir. Tang Wulin agreed once again. Cao Dashi's requests were not overboard, and it was for his benefit. Then you shall return and attend to your cultivation in earnest. You've quite some gains this time, so it'll be best for you to enter a deep meditative state, said Cao Dashi. Zhong Huanyun had an outburst of emotions as he gazed after Tang Wulin's departure. Old Cao, how could you agree to let him go? It's obvious that the boy's mental state is not stable. He's our army's most precious gem right now. What are you going to do in case something happens to him? Cao Dashi spoke. It's better to guide than deny him. Do you think he won't leave just because you don't permit him? Can you keep an eye on him at all times or hook him around your belt? Would it be difficult for him to sneak away with his cultivation base? If that were to happen, it's going to be even more troublesome. Don't worry. Our Tang sect still exists and has not been destroyed. Although Tang Wulin hasn't been here for long, he has already grown much. I'll send someone to watch over him. Also, are you not curious about that female who showed up at the end? Zhong Huanyun spoke with a deep voice. It's highly possible that he's going to face the Holy Spirit cult, in addition to the Spirit Pagoda, and also, at this point, he frowned and his expression turned gloomy soon after. Cao Dashi chuckled calmly. It's okay. How can one see the rainbow without going through a storm? Even though it's still a little early, it's advantageous for him to experience the world outside anyhow. Furthermore, do you think that Shrek Academy has been totally annihilated? Although he may have many enemies, there's no lack of supporters either. Just wait and see. The boy transformed into a dragon during the battle with the abyssal plane. He will not die so easily. Zhong Huanyun nodded with great effort. So, who are those you're sending along with him? Cao Dashi smiled. That's simple. Tang Wulin felt that he was much calmer when he returned to his room. After all, his willpower was stronger than most of his peers. He was overwhelmed by the unexpected for a short while, but he had calmed himself at present. There's no need to be afraid of the trouble you're in. Tang Wulin confided to himself. He would be able to clarify the matter anyhow. He was no longer the same person now. He clenched his fists subconsciously. He should be looking not only for Ji Yuana but his father and mother too. He remembered that his father left him a message. He was to look for his father after he had an adequate cultivation base. He had not only achieved a prominent rank in the military but also acquired the ability to protect them at present. He sat cross-legged in a meditative position as he focused his attention on his inner sight. Tang Wulin entered into a meditative state soon enough. His entire aura had also calmed down by now. Upon focusing his inner sight, he was astonished. His physical condition was much better than he had imagined. He first saw his dragon core and soul core. These two great cores had obviously distended. It was apparent that their qualities were different. There was a layer of gold on the surface of the dragon core, making it solid-like. The soul core was crystal clear now. These two cores contracted alternately in sync with the alternating energy in his body. He sensed the transformation in the two great cores. In the next instant, Tang Wulin felt his chest tighten as he suddenly remembered the incident. He had broken the Golden Dragon King's 11th layer seal during the final moments of fighting against the Abyssal Sage King. He had attempted to elevate his attacking ability using the seal's strength. He did not feel any discomfort at the time. However, the influence on his strength was evidently strong. After all, his cultivation base was elevated by a large extent after each breakthrough of the Golden Dragon King seal in the past. After the first 9 seals, the danger brought by the latter seals would increase dramatically. If he had not thought of sacrificing himself that day, he would certainly not have attempted to break the seal on his own initiative. It seemed like the after effects were minimal, at least, to him. In reality, Tang Wulin was unaware of how he had endured at the time. There were possibly a few reasons. For one, the infusion of the massive life force into his body with the life seed's protection. Another possible reason was his absorption of the energy from the abyssal plane's powerhouses which strengthened his body. Yet another was the enhancement he received from the 6 great plant-type soul beasts. On the other hand, it could be due to his body being stabilized as the result of his involvement with Ji Yuana in the Dragon God transformation. However, judging from the current situation, he could tell that his cultivation base was certainly elevated to a whole new level. His consciousness sank into his soul core as he sensed the change in his dragon core. Tang Wulin soon discovered that the soul core had undergone some internal changes. In the depths of the soul core, there was an additional vortex which sped up the rate of origin energy absorbed from the external world. The soul core's absorption of the origin energy would undoubtedly enhance his senses and improve his cultivation base. His consciousness stirred when a peculiar feeling arose in him. Tang Wulin discovered in astonishment that despite his closed eyes, everything in his surroundings became vividly clear as soon as his consciousness expanded. His sensations expanded rapidly as he saw a 9-colored lustrous and dazzling world. When he focused his spirit and calmed his energy, he could distinguish each and every fine elemental molecule and sense its every emotion. It was a whole new experience for him. At the same time, he attempted to pass his emotions to these elemental molecules with caution. These elemental molecules immediately gathered toward him, controlled by his consciousness much to his surprise. The 9-colored radiance in his surroundings grew denser abruptly. It was as if he had sunk into a joyous sea of elements. It seemed as if all his sorrows were cleansed away by these elements. All at once, he felt cozy and warmth in his body. His mind was peaceful. Simultaneously, his thoughts and senses pervaded an even larger region due to the influence of these elements. The mountain range in the distance was fully displayed before his eyes. His senses continued extending until the edge of the mountain range. Only then did he perceive some attenuation of the senses. He retracted his consciousness to bring in more elemental molecules. The origin energy enriched with all sorts of attributes was attracted to his consciousness. It then fused into his body in sync with the rhythm of his breathing. His soul core shimmered with radiance as it filtered, absorbed, and turned the origin energy into a part of his soul power. Tang Wulin retracted his spirit when he felt a sense of astonishment in his heart. He was aware of the significance of its occurrence. Actually, he had worked toward obtaining such a result during his earlier cultivation. He had made a breakthrough in his spiritual power. After such a long time, he had finally made it to the spirit domain, the cherished goal of every soul master. What was the significance of the spirit domain? It signified that a soul master had already reached the peak of this world in a spiritual sense. To be in the spiritual realm of the spirit domain was a significant achievement even for a limit Dolor. Tang Wulin had just broken through seven-ringed cultivation to become a soul sage, but his spiritual power had entered the spirit domain realm. Hence, his achievement could only be described as a miracle. Tang Wulin was aware that this opportunity was bestowed upon him by the planar power in addition to the life seed. He was acting as the spokesperson of the Dolor continent plane and the life seed during the fight against the abyss. It was his first encounter with the heaven and earth principles of the Dolor continent. Despite his spiritual power, which was difficult to elevate, he managed to break through the barrier to enter the spirit domain realm. Although it was just a preliminary entry into the spirit domain, it felt completely different. The ability to enter this realm showed that he had truly joined the ranks of the higher order soul masters. He could certainly become a hyper-Dolor in the future if he continued his cultivation with the spirit domain spiritual power as his foundation. Subsequently, the spirit domain spiritual power would certainly elevate his cultivation rate to the extent that his soul power would exceed the ordinary person by far. The great battle with the abyssal plane was undoubtedly tough and painful for Tang Wulin. However, it had brought him immense benefits. His soul power brazenly broke through to the soul sage rank as he stepped into the seven-ringed stage. A seven-ringed cultivation base was the criterion of a high-ranking soul master. With the double elevation from his soul core and dragon core, his spiritual power advancement to the spirit domain, and the complete absorption of the 11th layer Golden Dragon King seal, his physical quality had been elevated to an entirely new level. It would not be an exaggeration to describe Tang Wulin as being reborn. If the Federal Star-Do Network Challenge was held again, it would certainly be a breeze for Tang Wulin to defeat those opponents from before. The soul power in his body circulated in tandem to the rhythm of his breathing. It did not seem fast since his efficiency was now much higher. His meridians and bones had already turned golden. He did not appear human-like no matter how one viewed him. He had not noticed it, but his strength had truly elevated. In any case, the sensation was peculiar. It was as if his body was larger than before. He could even hear the ferocious dragon's roar accompanied by the indistinct sounds of his blood flow and the movements of his bones. It must be the dragon god transformation. Gu Yuana had called out the dragon god transformation at the time. She could not be mistaken for sure. Long ago, Gu once told Tang Wulin about the story of the dragon god. Could it be that his Golden Dragon King and her Silver Dragon King auras were inherited from the dragon god's lineage? Tang Wulin finally came to an understanding from the sudden realization. If that were the case, then she was supposed to be with him. That way both of them complemented one another. There was no doubt that during the dragon god transformation their abilities would become incomparably powerful. Now that Tang Wulin thought about the final collision from the other day, he realized that it was obviously Gu Yuana who exercised control over the planar power using dragon god transformation. Only then did she manage to withstand the abyssal sage god's attack. Even though this power did not belong to her, she was capable of exercising control over the Dolor continent plane's planar power using it. No one else was capable of doing that right. Tang Wulin had already calmed down at present, so his memories had become much clearer. He recalled the entire event that took place the other day. She was obviously heaving a sigh when she had just appeared. Why was she sighing though? There was no doubt that she had already regained her memories. He wondered if she had awakened ever since she consumed the velvet skyreach chrysanthemum back then, but she had still addressed him as father and stayed together with him all along. She had also waited for him in the fire basin and had never told him about her regaining her consciousness. Why did she do that? Was it because she was hiding from something, or was she doing that to be with him? She loves me. The idea skimmed over Tang Wulin's mind at lightning speed. If she didn't love me, why would she refuse to tell me the truth about her recovery and immediately leave afterward? Even though she is hiding something from me for sure, this doesn't conflict with her love for me. In his heart, Tang Wulin could only feel as he was suddenly enlightened upon figuring out this matter. All his problems seemed to be solved, and he could even feel as if his entire being had relaxed. As long as she loves me, is anything else still important? No. His lips finally cracked into a faint smile while his emotions stabilized in the end. He would need to thoroughly understand everything he learned from the battle this time that allowed so much elevation in himself, and also the experience he gained from the competition earlier, especially for his 2 original spear techniques created recently. He had found the first step of his path, so he would need more comprehension and allow all his learnings to sink in. King's Path and Final Stake. He had Golden Dragon King's strength and bloodline aura, so he was supposed to destroy the enemies blocking before himself as if he was breaking dead branches off a tree. Every skill was futile before absolute strength. The most powerful part of him was precisely his strength in a frontal attack. King's Path and Final Stake were without a doubt born from this. Relatively speaking, King's Path was more suited to be used in battles, while Final Stake was considered a desperate strike. A strike that he would pour all his energy into at all costs. Final Stake could only be used once, no matter when it was used, while its power would elevate along with the elevation in Tang Wulin's cultivation base. Tang Wulin gradually entered deep meditation as he recalled his earlier encounters in his mind. Cao Dashi slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was pulsating with peculiar brilliance. Spirit domain, huh? As expected, he has made a breakthrough. Perhaps this is the entire plane's choice. There's already the addition of the plane's willpower on him. I'm afraid it won't be easy for anyone to hurt him in the future. The plane's willpower will naturally protect him. Huan Yun, you're only worried because you haven't seen through this. At this point, Cao Dashi muttered to himself with a deep ponderation expression on his face. What does it mean by plane's willpower? Perhaps it's like a divine favor. A faint smile emerged on Cao Dashi's face. I'm truly anticipating it. I'm afraid another almighty of no equal in this time is going to come at the most dangerous juncture for the Tang sect and Shrek Academy. First Ancestor, is it you who's blessing and protecting us from the nether world? At this point, his gaze landed on the wall opposite to him. A painting scroll was hung on the pure white wall. A person was pictured in the painting. The boundless sea lied underneath his feet as his long blue hair hung down loosely behind his back. He stood with the serenity of a god, dressed in a suit of white garments while holding an enormous golden trident in his right hand. His gaze was warm yet distanced. Despite it only being a painting, his eyes were as deep as the abyss. Cao Dashi's emotions settled down at once upon looking at the painting scroll. First Ancestor, is it true that the divine realm doesn't exist anymore? If it doesn't, then where are you right now? You're Sima Jinkai? The Gale Saber demon Sima Jinkai? Aruhan patted on his large bald head as he looked at the person next to him with interest. Ever since the great battle from the other day, the entire Blood God army was in a state of stress. Then both of them were captured? Yes, it would be strange if the outsiders were not put under suspicion when they suddenly appeared in the barracks of the Blood God army at a time like this. Especially after the Evil Soul Master's surprise attack. Fortunately, they had left behind a profound impression on the soldiers of the Blood God army in the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge. After their identities were verified and considered, they were detained in the army under semi-house arrest. That's me. Are you the strength god? Sima Jinkai had an interesting expression as he looked at Aruhang. Even though both of them had never sparred against one another, they had both fought against a common opponent. Their purpose of visiting this place was almost the same as well. Both of them achieved an impressive result in the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge, and at present, they were looking at one another with sparks inevitably bursting out from their gaze. Hello? Aruhang extended his right hand for a handshake at Sima Jinkai. Sima Jinkai did not have any suspicion against Aruhang, so he raised his hand and shook Aruhang's hand. After the two huge hands grasped one another, Sima Jinkai's expression changed the very next moment. He examined himself and reached the conclusion that his strength was already considered the best for its time. Yet, he had only understood what the perfection of strength was after shaking Aruhang's hand. His strength was dissolved in a split second when his palm was knead like noodles in Aruhang's grasp. Sima Jinkai turned green in rage. Despicable. Aruhang loosened his grip and pouted his lips. It's not that bad. Sima Jinkai was furious. God *mn it. I'm skilled in saber techniques and I don't use physical strength to handle things like the barbaric you. Aruhang glared at him. Who are you calling a barbarian? You? Sima Jinkai stood up abruptly. However, he revealed a gloomy expression on his face soon. The reason was simple. A layer of a battle armor-like object was clad on both of their bodies. The object had a simple function: it was used to seal their soul power. However, the soul power lock was incapable of locking one's strength. Sima Jinkai's cultivation base used his martial soul as its foundation, so he could not even unleash his dragon-slaying saber at this moment. Aruhang was different. There was no need at all for him to exert any strength to remove the soul lock. Nothing in this world capable of restricting him due to the terrifying strength of his body. The furious Sima Jinkai's lips involuntarily twitched at once when he watched Aruhang stand up a head taller compared to himself, while at the same time having a sinister expression on his face. Back in Southern Army Corps, he had always been the bully. Since when was he lowered to being bullied by someone else instead? This situation simply could not be described with the word gloomy anymore. Flames were bursting out of his eyes. You just wait. Aruhang. When my soul power is restored, I'll certainly beat you up so bad that you won't be able to take care of yourself in this life anymore. Aruhang clenched his fist. A person who's about to be rendered incapable of self-care in life can still threaten the other. This is truly interesting. Just as he sniggered sinisterly and approached Sima Jinkai, the door of the guarded chamber suddenly opened. Two Blood God Army soldiers carrying loaded guns stood over there with a cold expression on their faces. Out. Both of you. Sima Jinkai and Aruhang gazed into one another before they each gave out a raging scoff. Then, they turned their heads to the side and walked towards the outside in great strides. Aruhang's shoulder slammed at Sima Jinkai and pushed him to the side as he took the lead to walk outside. Sima Jinkai was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He followed behind with a raging expression. They were sent to an office under the escort of the two soldiers. It was him. Their expressions changed instantly when they saw the person in that office. With his cultivation base, it was natural that he would not be taken without a fight, and ordinary Blood God Battalion soldiers could not be his opponent. Just when they were surrounded by a large number of soul tools, a figure descended from the skies. Under the shine of the high bright mirror, the two proud children of the heavens had been defeated with a single blow. They still remembered clearly that the elder who defeated them was a general with 3 golden stars on his shoulders. He was the person standing before them. Zhong Huanyun looked at the two extremely buffed guys who stood before him with ice-cold eyes. You must be Commander Zhong? I'm Sima Jinkai from the Southern Army Corps. I'm under the command of Commander Yu. Sima Jinkai started loudly. Have I allowed you to speak? Zhong Huanyun coldly looked at him. An invisible pressure bore down on Sima Jinkai like a lofty mountain. He found it difficult to catch his breath and quickly shut his mouth. Sima Jinkai felt extremely aggrieved. He definitely had the ability to fight back before his soul power was sealed. However, He could do nothing right now. Aruhan glanced at him. He chuckled but said nothing. Do you know what wrong have the two of you done? Zhong Huanyun coldly said. Sima Jinkai and Aruhan exchanged glances. He had just wanted to open his mouth when he felt the pressure on his body grow stronger. He could not say anything. Sima Jinkai felt extremely frustrated. You're asking me questions, but you're not allowing me to speak. What kind of situation is this? As expected, Zhong Huanyun continued as if this were a monologue. You two have trespassed on Blood God Army's base. I'll have you know that this is a top-secret base. All trespassers shall be executed immediately. All right, bring them outside and shoot them to death. What? He's only spoken 2 sentences and now we're about to be executed at gunpoint. Sima Jinkai and Aruhan's eyes bulged at the same time. They could not believe what they had just heard. Aruhan struggled fiercely and was about to break free of his soul power lock. However, just as he made that move, Zhong Huanyun raised his hand and a beam of light shone on him. Aruhan only felt his entire body went numb. He could not even summon an ounce of strength. For soldiers with loaded rifles had charged in currently. 2 soldiers escorted 1 prisoner and brought them outside. Aruhan and Sima Jinkai could clearly feel that these 4 Blood God Army soldiers had killing intent so dense that they seemed to have materialized. Are they really going to kill us? Aruhan and Sima Jinkai were both shocked and at the same time, their fear grew greatly as well. There was nobody who was not afraid of death. If it was on the battlefield, they might have been able to view death as lightly as taking a trip back home. However, they were about to be shot to death without any explanation. How could they accept that? They were only here to look for someone. They had even brought an introductory letter. Even if the Blood God Army had experienced great tragedies before this, they should not kill people without learning the truth beforehand. This was treating human lives as valuable as stocked hay. However, under Zhong Huanyun's pressure, they could not even defend themselves, let alone explain their circumstances. Their hearts were beating as if tens of thousands of horses galloped across it. The 2 of them were directly dragged outside to the snowy terrain. The ice-cold wind pierced into their bodies with a bone-chilling cold sensation. Sima Jinkai and Aruhan finally started feeling anxious. They wanted to struggle, but the soul power locks on their bodies and the strength the bright mirror dolor left on Aruhan's body robbed them of the ability to break free. The coldness in their hearts was far more intense than the cold they felt on their bodies. Especially when they saw that on the snowy ground, 2 black mechas had been waiting for them. They had no idea when they came there. They carried massive soul cannons in their hands that had been aimed at the 2. The 2 of them were dragged forward and pinned onto 2 metal poles. The poles had locks that locked bodies into place. The 2 black mechas before them simultaneously raised the soul cannons in their hands. The soul cannons' barrels had a diameter that was wider than their heads. The dark and scary barrels were aimed at their hearts. The feeling of being close to death had pushed their fears to their extremes. Aruhan was a cultivator of the body sect's innate secret technique. However, he could not even utilize an ounce of his strength and soul power at the current moment. There was no way he could push his defensive abilities to the extremes. If they were hit head-on by the soul cannons, they would definitely die. How did things come to this? How did it come to this? No! Don't kill me! Aruhan suddenly shouted. He had only discovered that he could speak now. Sima Jinkai howled furiously. You guys are treating human lives like hay. You don't have the right to kill me. I'm a senior colonel of the Southern Army Corps. Ready. Target their heads. The soldiers took no heed of their exasperated and furious outbursts. One of them raised his right arm. It looked like a reaper's scythe at the moment. The 2 black mechas' soul cannons were clearly charged. There seemed to be a faint glow pulsing within the barrels. Aruhan was not satisfied. He had never thought that after suffering for so many years and after going through many hardships to cultivate to his current state he would die here under such baffling circumstances. He was not satisfied with this. Fire! The soldier brought his right arm down. The two black mechas' soul cannons fired with a loud bang. Two masses of brilliant light shot toward Aruhan's and Simajinch's heads. These were a black mecha's explosive ammunition. They could even mow down a small mountain, let alone two soul masters who could not even utilize their soul powers. The feeling of death instantly filled their limbs. Aruhan and Sima Jinkai howled furiously at almost the same time. Boom! Boom! Deafening explosion sounds were heard. The two explosions sent two clumps of light into the air instantly. Aruhan's and Sima Jinchi's thoughts had frozen over instantly. Are we dead? Are we dead, just like that? Their souls had seemingly floated to another world. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably. At this very moment, a voice laced with anger sounded, "Why is the death sentence being carried out? Who are these two people?" A voice? I can still hear a voice. Could it be that I'm not dead yet? The same thought seemed to have appeared in Aruhan's and Sima Jinchi's head at the same time. They instinctively regained their senses. They clearly saw a middle-aged man in a general's uniform standing before them. He was yelling at the soldiers. Reporting to the senior officer, "It's the commander that gave the order for the death sentence to be carried out. These two are possible spies sent by the Holy Spirit cult. They appeared in the army when we were resealing the abyssal plain. They were captured by the commander. The commander had said that it's better to be safe than sorry so that an ambush by the Holy Spirit cult like what we've recently experienced won't happen again. I'm not an evil soul master," Aruhan and Sima Jinkai said with a tacit agreement. "Oh." The middle-aged man turned around. Sima Jinkai and Aruhan saw a handsome but stern face. They had not met this person before. However, they could clearly feel an indescribable pressure coming from this person. This pressure was not in the least inferior to what the commander who sentenced them to death exerted. Although they had some basic understanding of the Blood God Army before they came, the Blood God Army was still classified as a top secret in the Federation. Even their teacher and the senior officers were not completely clear about the Blood God Army. There was no way that they would know a lot about it. However, in this current moment, when they saw two beings that were close to hyperduluos if not hyperduluos themselves, how could they not be filled with awe? The middle-aged man had a slight frown. "You're not evil soul masters. How can you prove that?" Even with Aruhan's and Sima Jinchi's will, when they suddenly saw a ray of hope after feeling the despair of death, they became extremely vulnerable. It was the same for all men. Sima Jinkai said anxiously, "I'm from the Southern Army Corps. You can confirm my identity with the Southern Army Corps Commander, His Excellence the Angel Dolor. I'm really not a spy. I've even participated in the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge recently and have met the contestant Golden Dragon King who's from here. I've come to look for him and spar with him." Aruhan said as well, "I'm Tang Wulin's senior disciple brother from the Body Sect. I'm also here to spar with him. How can I be an evil soul master? I'm cultivating Body Sect's secret techniques. You can check me if you want. I'm definitely different than those evil soul masters." The middle-aged man looked at the two of them and sighed softly. He said, "The army is too easily startled at the mere sound of rustling leaves in the wind, but we can't look upon human lives as if they were grass. Very well, I'll go talk to the commander. Put this death sentence on hold for now. Wait for my return." After he finished, this middle-aged man walked away slowly. As they watched his receding back, Aruhan and Sima Jinkai let out relieved sighs. At least they would not have to die for now. This meant that they would have an opportunity. However, what they did not see was when the middle-aged man left them, a smile had already appeared on his face. As expected, he went directly to Zhong Huanyun's office. He did not even knock, he just pushed the door open and went in. Zhong Huanyun lifted his head and looked at him with a huge grin. The screen beside him was precisely displaying Sima Jinkai and Aruhan who were tied to the poles on the snowy grounds. "What an excellent control over the timing of your move. Aren't you worried that these two might wet their pants out of fright?" As expected of the heartless Dolor. Zhong Huanyun laughed. The heartless Dolor Kaudashi chuckled, "I'm not the one who sentenced them to death. They'll only be grateful towards me after this. You're the bad guy here. Zhong Huanyan said pointedly, this clearly is your mischievous scheme, but I'm the one that has to take the blame. You're a truly wicked person, you know that? However, I can't help but think if there's really a need to do this. Our reason was actually quite far-fetched. The identities of those two are actually easily verifiable, especially when they had just participated in the competition. Cao Deji nodded and said, it is needed. With their natural talents and by their performance in the competition, they have completely displayed their wild personalities. If we don't give them some trouble at the start, it might not be a good thing for them to follow Wulin in the future. Without a doubt, Tang Wulin will be the most outstanding person of this generation. However, 2 heads are better than 1. His companions from Shrek Academy aren't the only ones that can help him. He still needs some comrades who are very powerful and he can put his trust in. That Sima Jinqi's martial soul should be compatible with Tang Wulin's. Their martial souls complement each other. Aruhang is his senior disciple brother from Body Sect. Both of them can be trusted. We'll take some edge on them first. Then, they'll be much more helpful for Tang Wulin. Zhong Huanyan deeply looked at Cao Deji. At first I wasn't satisfied. If you hadn't picked Tang Wulin first, I might have brought him over to my side. Now it seems that you had this planned all along. You've meticulously planned this out for them. Cao Deji chuckled, you're overthinking things. No matter what, he wouldn't possibly follow you. Don't forget that he's a Tang sect disciple. He's already been on Tang sect's higher-ups' radar for a long time. It's not something that has happened recently. When he became one of the Shrek Academy's 7 monsters, he has become an individual that Tang sect will have to nurture. The enemy's ambush was truly sudden this time. They've caught the Shrek Academy and even me off guard. We've suffered great losses. If they thought that they could uproot 2 of the continent's great forces that have been around for 10,000 years and dominated the continent, they couldn't be more wrong. Tang sect and Shrek Academy didn't fight back for the first time. This is because we have been accumulating our strength and waiting for a new generation of leaders to emerge. Now the time is ripe. The new generation of leaders will emerge with a bang and move forward while being polished. In the future, they'll surely be able to lead the Tang sect and Shrek Academy and recreate their glories. Even surpass them if possible. I never thought that Shrek Academy will just fade away after taking a heavy blow. In my opinion, Shrek is a phoenix that's waiting to be reborn. When it rises up again, it'll only burst forth with greater brilliance. After hearing Cao Deji's words, Zhong Huanyan could not help but change his expression. Although he never believed that Shrek Academy could be destroyed this easily, he did not have complete confidence in Shrek like Cao Deji had. Let's wait and see. Your decision of letting the Blood God army come onto our side won't be wrong. You'll surely rejoice in the future because of this decision. The Blood God army's glow will surely grow in brilliance. Zhong Huanyan nodded his head lightly. If you had this told to me a few days ago, I might have even snorted at you. But when I felt that the young man's spiritual power to have already broken through spirit domain, I can't help but agree with everything that you've said. The only worry is that the pressure he has to bear on his shoulders isn't light. The improvement in his strength is important undeniably, but I think we'll still have to help him out in nurturing his mental state. Yes, that's what I'm worried about as well. But there are some things that can only be settled by him on his own. I believe that Tang Wulin can do it. He's a proud son of the heavens who was born at the right time. He won't be defeated that easily. Aruhang and Sima Jinkai were both already shuddering 2 hours ago. The normal temperature for the Blood God Army's camp was -30 degrees Celsius. When the biting cold wind came, the temperature might even feel lower by another 20 degrees. If they were under their normal conditions, this low temperature would not have meant anything to them. Their cultivation bases had already surpassed the level where they would be affected by cold or heat. However, their cultivation bases had been sealed currently. They could only rely on their own body's qualities. Under such circumstances and being in the cold environment for such a long time, even a man made of iron could not bear this. The soldiers who guarded them were in full attire. However, they only wore one layer of clothes. Since the middle-aged man went to negotiate for them, 6 hours had passed. Icicles had already formed on their eyebrows and mustache. If they were ordinary people, they would have been frozen to death already. Even if their body qualities were powerful, their faces had become ghastly pale. Aruhang was in slightly better shape. He was a body sect expert after all. His own body's quality was valiant enough. Sima Jinkai was also a person with a powerful body. However, even he was on the verge of breaking down right now. "Can you go and ask about our situation?" Sima Jinkai asked one of the soldiers with a shaky voice. However, the soldiers stood there like statues. They did not show any reactions. They completely ignored them. Aruhang smiled wryly. "Don't waste your energy. These people are no different than robots. Tell me, what wrong have I done to deserve such suffering? If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come. I don't even know where my junior disciple brother is." Sima Jinkai rolled his eyes. "Are you stupid? You didn't even contact him before you came here. You've brought this onto yourself." Aruhang angrily said, "I'm stupid? So you're the smart one now? Did you contact him before you came? Aren't you in the same situation as me right now? Let's see who'll buckle under the cold first. I know I can still take more. F***CK. Sima Jinkai cursed angrily. "Just how much better are you compared to me? If we're shot to death, we'll end up the same." Aruhang rolled his eyes again. He suddenly said to the soldier opposite him, "Hey! Do you know the Golden Dragon King? It's the person who won the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge from your army. He's my junior disciple brother. Why don't you call him out here for me? If I can talk to him, he can verify my identity. I've competed with him just recently. Don't tell me you guys never watched the competition." The soldiers were still unmoved. It was as if they had not heard his words. "I'm playing the lute to a cow." Aruhan's expression was furious. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned and looked around him. Blood God Army's barracks were built on a mountain's peak. Although the area was vast, the barracks were built more compact for better protection and to better keep the inhabitants warm. Aruhang drew a deep breath, his chest slowly puffed up. After all, he was the most outstanding disciple of Body Sect. He also cultivated the innate secret technique. With the passage of time, the restrictions Zhong Huanyun placed on him seemed to have loosened as well. He drew a deep breath like a whale sucking in water and his entire person swelled up. Sima Jinkai quickly noticed that something was not right with him. However, he did not know what Aruhang was planning to do. In the next moment, Aruhang suddenly opened his mouth as he shouted with all his might. "Tang Wulin, senior disciple brother is here. Come and save me." Although he could not utilize his soul power at the moment, with his extraordinary lung capacity, his furious yell was like shocking thunder. Even the soldiers in front of them took a few steps backward when he yelled. "Tang Wulin, your big master brother is here. Save me, quick! Save me!" Aruhang yelled madly. That was right, Tang Wulin must have been in the barracks. How could he not have thought of such crude but possibly effective way to ask for his help? As long as Tang Wulin comes here and notices him, he could naturally verify his identity. Rather than waiting for someone else to save him, he would save himself. "Shut up!" One of the soldiers strode up to him. However, Aruhang could not care about anything else right now. He continued shouting on top of his lungs. The entire barracks resounded with his crude and bright voice. If it were not for the support of the plants all across the mountains, his series of furious howls would have certainly set off an avalanche on the surrounding peaks. When Sima Jinkai saw this, he immediately followed suit and shouted furiously with Aruhang. He shouted the same as what Aruhang shouted. Comparatively, he was not as close to Tang Wulin as Aruhang. However, if he shouted the words "senior disciple brother," it would be more likely to attract Tang Wulin's attention. Inside the office, Cao Dashi laughed hysterically. These two idiots. They've only thought of such a simple method after suffering so long. but this is good as well. Since they've thought of a solution, we won't have to use our other methods. Zhong Huanyun chuckled. We can't help it if they are idiots. They deserve to be in the cold for 6 hours. Let Tang Wulin be the good guy this time. It seems like this crude scheme of ours is about to succeed. They were not in the least bit worried that Tang Wulin would not be able to hear this voice. If a person's spiritual power cultivation base had surpassed spirit domain realm, his spiritual power would be spread out at every moment to feel the changes in origin energy of their surroundings. If a person's sensitive spiritual power could not even pick up their name, that would be too useless. Tang Wulin sat in his own room and was in a process where he was getting better. After meditating for so long, he had some basic understanding of his body's condition. While unsealing the 11th Golden Dragon King's seal, he had borrowed some origin energy to complete the merging of the energy. This had helped him withstand the impact and backlash from the Golden Dragon King's essence. With the addition of some luck and the life seed's mediation, he had completed the merging with the 11th seal. His dragon core transformed after he merged with the 11th seal. Tang Wulin clearly felt that the dragon core within his body was not only pumping out blood essence power, but it was also producing its own blood essence power. If it was said that it was a heart before this, then in a certain sense it was Tang Wulin's heart now. As long as the dragon core was still intact, even if Tang Wulin's heart were to be damaged, he would definitely not die. His shattered could even be regenerated. His bones, meridians, and even internal organs had turned golden at this moment. Even Tang Wulin himself was unsure if he could still be regarded as a human being. This feeling was truly intriguing. After the origin energy was absorbed into his body, it was not only absorbed by his soul core but his dragon core too. He himself was surprised that it was able to absorb it. With the shrinking of his dragon core, the origin energy would also become a part of his blood essence. Tang Wulin knew that when a Soul Master's cultivation base reached 7 rings, the Soul Master would no longer be a mere human. The soul skill that all 7-ringed Soul Master obtained was the same, Martial Soul Avatar. This soul skill could manifest a Soul Master's martial soul by exciting it. It could also greatly increase the martial soul's combat strength. This was also why 7 rings were regarded as the dividing crest between high-ranking and mid-ranking Soul Masters. The completion of one's martial soul avatar signified that a Soul Master had completely merged with its own martial soul. The martial soul had truly become a part of the Soul Master and vice versa. They were no longer separate entities. If a 100,000-year soul beast chose to cultivate into a human form, it must reach this level as well before it could be regarded as a human being. The reason was the same. Tang Wulin was currently in such a state. His blue-silver Emperor martial soul was not the only one that had merged completely with his body. The Golden Dragon King bloodline of his seemed to be experiencing some strange changes with his body as well. On his forehead, 2 horns slowly protruded and grew. The dragon horns were not long, but they were extremely solid. After they appeared, Tang Wulin clearly felt like he had gained another natural talent. This ability was not a physical attack, nor was it a spiritual attack. It resembled more of an intimidating aura that originated from the deepest parts of his bloodline. To put it simply, dragon might. Yes, when his cultivation base reached that of a 7-ringed soul saint, he obtained dragon might as well. When any dragon-type martial soul wielder stood before him before this, they would be influenced by his blood essence power. Now that he had dragon might, all martial souls that were inferior to him in terms of bloodline would be naturally influenced by him. Dragon might could weaken and intimidate his enemies while increasing his own strength at the same time. This was a fundamental change. At the same time, Tang Wulin was also settling down his thoughts during this meditation. His qualities changed as well. He was already very good-looking since before, but now he looked more masculine and intimidating. He appeared more like the person who holds a high office now. With the presence of dragon might, he seemed to have grown older in an instant. Even though he was only sitting there cross-legged and was not angry at all, he still gave off an intimidating aura. He was no longer a teenager or a youth. At this moment, he seemed to have truly become an adult, a powerful adult soul master. Tang Wulin, I'm your senior disciple brother, save me. At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Tang Wulin's spiritual power slightly jumped. When his spiritual cultivation base entered spirit domain realm, he could sense the changes of the heaven and earth elements in a large area around him. He could even attract origin energy tide to help himself cultivate. At the same time, he could also sense the changes and auras in this area. Naturally, he would ignore the meaningless information that reached him. Only the energy waves with extremely powerful changes or those that concerned him would stimulate his spiritual power. For example, his name. Someone's calling me? Senior disciple brother? Tang Wulin's spiritual power swiftly found the direction from which the voice came. His spiritual power was like his eyes. Even though he was new to spirit domain realm and he could not see as clearly as with his own eyes, he could clearly feel the extremely dense and buoyant blood essence shockwave. Was it his senior disciple brother, strength god A Ruhang? He could also feel another familiar aura beside him. Who's this? Why is he here? At the same time Tang Wulin felt shocked, he hastily focused his spiritual power and sent out his spiritual power shockwave towards A Ruhang. A Ruhang's mouth was stuffed with a beam assault rifle. Sima Jinkai was also given the same treatment. He could not make another sound. However, their bodies that had become numb from being out in the cold for so long had warmed up slightly after shouting for some time. At this moment a voice suddenly sounded in A Ruhang's mind. Senior disciple brother, wait for me. HM? A Ruhang was rejoiced at first. This was because he immediately recognized that this voice belonged to his junior disciple brother. However, right after he felt shocked as well. How did Tang Wulin's voice appear in the depths of his mind? This was not something that could be accomplished by voice projection. He was also a powerful person of this generation from the body sect and the heir of its sect master. He could naturally notice the power of Tang Wulin's ability. Even so, his thoughts did not progress in the direction of spirit domain realm spiritual power. After all, that was not so easy to achieve. In the time it took him to take 10 breaths, a figure appeared like the wind. When A Ruhang saw Tang Wulin in his clean white military uniform with a general's star on his shoulders, he felt like crying immediately. He was saved, he was finally saved. Tang Wulin was also puzzled. When he saw A Ruhang and Sima Jinkai being bound to the two metal poles, he could not help but feel shocked. This was because he remembered that there were no such poles in the barracks before this. Since when were they installed? Senior disciple brother, why are you here? And what's all this? Tang Wulin instinctively looked at the soldiers around them. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.